Get a real job, dreamer, my sister laughed. 8 years later, HR flagged her resume. Ma'am, your sister applied for cleaning staff. I looked at my Fortune 500 company and said, process her application like any other. If she meets the requirements, schedule an interview. No special treatment, positive or negative. I set down the resume, trying to ignore the bitter satisfaction of seeing Jessica's name on an application for janitorial services at NextGen Solutions. The fake internet company she'd mocked relentlessly 8 years ago. Are you sure? HR Director Michael asked carefully. Given the personal connection, especially given the personal connection, we have standards. If she meets them, she interviews. If not, she doesn't. Simple. But nothing about Jessica and me had ever been simple. 8 years ago, Thanksgiving 2016, I sat at my parents' dining table, nervous but excited to share my news. I'd been working on something special for months. An AI-powered logistics platform that could revolutionize supply chain management. Classic startup dream, built in my garage with more caffeine than capital. So what's new with you, Samantha? Mom had asked, serving turkey. Actually, I have some big news. I'm leaving Goldman Sachs to focus on my startup full-time. The silence was deafening. Forks suspended midway to mouths. Even the kids stopped fidgeting. Jessica, my older sister, was the first to recover. She actually laughed, not a polite chuckle, but a full-throated laugh that made her wine slosh dangerously. Wait, seriously? You're leaving a 6-figure job to play with computers in your garage. It's not playing. I've developed a platform that... Get a real job, dreamer, she'd interrupted, still chuckling. This is exactly like when you were 12 and thought you'd become a professional video game player. Some people never grow up. This is different. I have a working prototype, potential investors. Potential, Dad had muttered. That's the key word. Let me guess, Jessica continued, warming to her theme. It's some app thing? Like everyone and their mother isn't making apps? What's next, cryptocurrency? NFTs. It's enterprise software for supply chain optimization using machine learning. Sounds fake, my brother-in-law Todd had chimed in. No offense, Sam, but Jessica's right. You've got a great job at Goldman. Why throw it away for some internet fantasy? Jessica had nodded approvingly at her husband. See, Todd gets it. He's regional manager at his company now. That's real success. Steady paycheck, good benefits, normal hours. Not whatever this is. I work 90 hours a week at Goldman. For good money, Jessica had exclaimed. Not for some maybe someday if we're lucky startup nonsense. Do you know how many startups fail? Like 90%. 92% actually, I'd said quietly. I've done the research. And you still want to do this? Are you insane? Mom had tried to mediate. Maybe Samantha could do this on the side. No, Mom, Jessica had cut in. Don't enable her. Someone needs to give her a reality check. Sam, you're 30 years old. It's time to stop chasing pipe dreams and act like an adult. Building a business is acting like an adult. Building a business? Jessica had scoffed. You're building nothing. You're gambling with your future. Thank God you don't have kids to think about. That had stung. Jessica knew I'd postponed having children to focus on my career, a decision she'd always judged. You'll be crawling back to Goldman in 6 months, she'd predicted. If they'll even take you back. Do you know how stupid it is to leave a sure thing for a maybe? Every innovation started as a maybe. Oh, please. You're not Steve Jobs, Samantha. You're a finance analyst with delusions of grandeur. The rest of dinner had been torture. Jessica kept making jokes about my little internet project, while Todd smugly discussed his regional manager responsibilities and their new house and their perfect suburban life built on steady paychecks and zero risks. Promise me, Jessica had said as I left. When this fails, and it will fail, you'll admit I was right. That some people are meant to be employees, not entrepreneurs. And if it succeeds? She'd laughed again. Sure, Sam. When your garage startup becomes a Fortune 500 company, I'll personally apply to be your janitor. That's how confident I am that you're making a massive mistake. Everyone had laughed. Even Mom. I'd driven home in tears, their mockery echoing in my head. But something else echoed too, determination. I'd show them. I'd show her. The first year nearly killed me. 18-hour days, ramen noodles, maxed out credit cards. My prototype worked, but investors were skeptical. Logistics is a crowded space, they'd say. What makes you different? Everything, I wanted to scream. But I refined my pitch instead. The breakthrough came when a mid-sized retailer, desperate to fix their supply chain issues, gave me a chance. Our AI reduced their logistics costs by 30% in 3 months. Word spread. Soon, larger companies came calling. You need a team, my first major investor had said, writing a check for $2 million. This is too big for one person. I hired carefully, brilliant misfits who'd been overlooked by traditional companies. We worked like demons, iterating constantly, failing fast and learning faster. Year 2, $10 million in revenue. Year 3, $50 million. Year 4, $200 million and our first acquisition offer. Sell, everyone advised. Take the money and run. But I remembered Jessica's laugh. Her certainty that I'd fail. I wasn't done proving her wrong. We went public year 6. IPO valued us at $5 billion. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know the next-gen story. Forbes, Fortune, The Wall Street Journal. From Goldman dropout to tech billionaire, the Samantha Chin story. My family's attitude shifted overnight. Dad called to congratulate me, mentioning he'd always known I had it in me. Mom wanted to know if I could get cousin Angela a job. Even Todd sent a LinkedIn request. But not Jessica. She went radio silent. Through mutual friends, I heard she wasn't doing well. Todd had been laid off during corporate restructuring. Turns out regional managers were expendable. Their house went underwater. Jessica's own career in pharmaceutical sales had stalled when her company folded. I'd thought about reaching out, but what would I say? Sorry your life imploded while mine exploded? The gap between us had grown too wide, filled with her mockery and my success. Now, 8 years after that Thanksgiving, she'd applied to clean the offices of the company she'd said would never exist. Ma'am, Michael was still waiting. About the application? I said process it normally. But keep me informed. 2 days later, he returned. She passed the background check and has relevant experience. The cleaning contractor wants to schedule an interview. Then schedule it. Should we tell her? That her sister owns the company? No. Let the process play out. But I couldn't focus, knowing she was in the building. When the interview time came, I found myself by the window overlooking the lobby, watching her enter. She looked older, tired. The designer clothes replaced by off-the-rack professional wear. The confident swagger that had carried her through that Thanksgiving replaced by something closer to desperation. An hour later, Michael called. The contractor wants to hire her. Night shift, building maintenance. Should we hire her if she's qualified? Treat her like anyone else? Yes, ma'am. I lasted exactly one night before curiosity won. At 10 p.m., I returned to the office, making excuses about forgotten files. The night cleaning crew was already working. I found Jessica on the 40th floor, earbuds in, pushing a vacuum across the carpet of what had once been my office when we were smaller. She looked up and froze. Hi, Jess. The vacuum died. We stood there, 8 years of silence stretching between us. So you know, she said finally. HR flagged it. Protocol for family members. I'm not asking for special treatment. I know. I need this job, Sam. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. I know that too. She looked around the office, marble and glass and success she'd never believed in. This is really all yours? 23,000 employees. Offices in 14 countries. Fortune 500 as of last year. Jesus. Silence again. I waited for the apology, the admission she'd been wrong. Instead, she surprised me. I was scared, she said quietly. At that Thanksgiving, you were leaving everything stable for something I didn't understand. And if you could do that, leave Goldman, risk everything. What did that say about me? About my safe choices? Jess, I mocked you because your courage highlighted my cowardice. It was easier to tear down your dreams than examine why I'd never chased mine. What were your dreams? She laughed bitterly. Architecture. I wanted to design buildings. But that meant more school, internships, starting at the bottom. Sales was safer. Todd was safer. Everything I chose was safer. And look where safe got me. I'm sorry. Don't be. I made my choices. I need you to know that I'm proud of you. Even if I was too scared and petty to say it then. I sat on the edge of the desk. You really applied to be my janitor? Like you joked. Life's funny that way. Though I prefer sanitation engineer. Very corporate of you. I've learned some things. She paused. I won't trade on our relationship. Won't mention it to anyone. I just need honest work. Actually, I said, making a decision, I might have something else. Can you still draw? Like you used to. Her eyes lit up slightly. Yeah. I sketch sometimes. We're expanding. Need someone to liaise between the architects and our facilities team. Someone who understands design, but also corporate realities. Interested? Sam, I can't accept. It's not charity. We need someone with your exact background. Sales experience for dealing with contractors. Design interest for the architectural side. You'd have to start entry level. Entry level sounds amazing compared to this. She gestured at the vacuum. There's one condition. Anything. No more mocking dreamers. In this company, we encourage moonshots. Even if they seem impossible. Especially if they seem impossible. Now you're getting it. She started crying then, 8 years of pride and pain finally breaking through. I hugged her, my big sister who'd made me feel so small, now feeling small herself. I'm sorry, she whispered. For Thanksgiving. For everything. I know. Me too. For what? Building this? Proving me wrong. For needing to prove you wrong. For letting your mockery fuel me more than my own dreams. For taking 8 years to realize success without family to share it with is just expensive loneliness. We talked until dawn, catching up on 8 lost years. Her divorce from Todd. My struggles with imposter syndrome despite the success. Her kids who knew Aunt Sam only from newspaper articles. My engagement to my CTO that I hadn't told the family about. You really did it, she said as sunrise painted the office gold. Everything I said you couldn't. We both did impossible things. You survived when safe choices failed. That takes its own courage. She started the architect liaison position 2 weeks later. Not because she was my sister, but because she was qualified. She had to earn her place like everyone else. But she did it with determination I'd never seen in her before. At the company Christmas party, she found me on the balcony overlooking the city. Remember what I said? About applying to be your janitor. Vividly. Funny how the thing I threatened you with became the thing that saved me. Having to humble myself, start over, recognize what really matters. What really matters? Family who'll give you a chance when you least deserve it. Sisters who build companies that change the world. Dreams that seem impossible until someone's crazy enough to chase them. Get a real job, dreamer, I quoted. I did, she said. Working for my little sister's fake internet company. We laughed together, the sound nothing like her mocking laugh from 8 years ago. This was joy connection. 2 sisters who'd found their way back to each other through failure and success and the strange circular nature of life. Jessica never did become my janitor. She became my director of architectural services, then VP of facilities, then COO of our real estate division. Turns out, when you stop mocking dreams and start chasing them, anything's possible. Even forgiveness. Even family. Even proving that the best revenge isn't success. It's success shared with the people who doubted you, once they find the courage to believe. The company she'd mocked at Thanksgiving was worth $15 billion by then. But the relationship we rebuilt? Priceless. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned. The boardroom at Hartwell Industries felt different that morning. Maybe it was the way the morning light hit the mahogany table, or how the portraits of former CEOs seemed to watch with unusual interest. I stood outside the door, hand raised to knock, when I heard her voice, clear, confident, and cutting me down like a scythe through wheat. We need to discuss Diana Chun before this goes any further. Margaret Blackwood, my mentor for 7 years. The woman who'd taught me to navigate corporate politics, who'd opened doors, who'd told me just last week that I was like the daughter she never had. What about Diana? That was Richard Hartwell, the chairman. His tone was neutral, giving nothing away. She's brilliant, Margaret began, and I felt a moment of warmth. Brilliant, dedicated, innovative. But, there it was. The but that had followed me my entire career. But she's not executive material. Too emotional. I pressed my back against the wall, portfolio clutched to my chest. Through the cracked door, I could see the full board assembled. 12 of the most powerful people in our industry, gathered to choose the next CEO of Hartwell Industries. Emotional how? Asked Patricia Williams from the New York office. Diana cries in meetings. Margaret's voice carried the weight of disappointed authority. Not leadership material. I've seen it multiple times. When we had to close the Detroit plant. During the Richardson acquisition talks. Last month during the layoff discussions. I see, someone murmured. Leaders need to be strong, Margaret continued. Decisive. Unshakable. Diana's a wonderful person, but she lets her feelings cloud her judgment. She gets too attached to people, too invested in outcomes beyond the bottom line. Can you give specific examples? That was David Kim, the CFO. Of course. Margaret pulled out what looked like a prepared folder. She'd come ready to destroy me. The Detroit plant. We needed to cut 500 jobs to stay competitive. The numbers were clear. But Diana spent 3 weeks trying to find alternatives. She cried during the final meeting. Actual tears in front of everyone. What alternatives did she propose? Richard asked. Margaret waved dismissively. Restructuring plans, retraining programs, partial furloughs instead of terminations. Emotional responses to a business decision. Didn't those alternatives save 500 jobs? Patricia's voice was sharp. That's not the point. It's exactly the point, David interrupted. Her emotional response saved 500 jobs and $3 million in severance costs. The retraining program she cried about? Those workers now run our most efficient plant. Margaret's composure cracked slightly. That's revisionist history. She got lucky. Lucky. Richard's voice was dangerously quiet. She cried because she was fighting for people's livelihoods. And then she saved them. That's not luck. That's leadership. You're missing my point, Margaret pressed on. The Richardson acquisition. She nearly tanked the deal because she was worried about company culture and employee morale. She actually teared up when discussing the integration plans. The acquisition that failed spectacularly 6 months later? Patricia asked. The one where Richardson's toxic culture poisoned everything they touched? Diana warned us, and we didn't listen. Cost us $50 million. How could she have known? Because she pays attention to people, not just numbers, David said. Because she was emotional enough to notice their 70% turnover rate and harassment lawsuits. Because tears don't make you weak, they make you human. I should have walked away. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're all being sentimental, Margaret snapped. This is exactly the problem. Diana makes everyone emotional. She's too soft for the CEO role. When Marcus Kingston retired last year, did he cry? When Jennifer Walsh cut the entire R&D department, did she shed tears? No. They made hard decisions without drama. Marcus Kingston is under federal investigation for embezzlement, Richard said dryly. And Jennifer Walsh's company just filed for bankruptcy because she cut R&D. Maybe a few tears would have helped them see clearly. The board needs someone strong. The board needs someone effective, Patricia cut in. Diana's department has grown 300% under her leadership. She has the lowest turnover rate in the company. Her team would follow her into fire. Because she babies them. Because she respects them. David's voice was firm. I've watched Diana for 10 years. Yes, she cried when we discussed layoffs. Then she worked 18-hour days to prevent them. Yes, she gets emotional about company culture. That's why we have the best culture in the industry. She's not CEO material, Margaret insisted. Trust me, I've mentored her for years. I know her weaknesses better than anyone. She needs someone stronger above her. Someone like me. The room went silent. Like you. Richard's voice was silk over steel. I've been with this company for 25 years, Margaret straightened. I've never cried in a meeting. Never let emotion cloud my judgment. I've made the hard calls without flinching. Yes, Patricia agreed. Like when you fired the entire marketing team without notice. Or when you canceled the pension program to boost quarterly earnings. Not a tear in sight. Those were necessary. Those were heartless, David interrupted. And costly. We lost our best talent and faced 3 lawsuits. But you're right, you didn't cry. Diana is not leadership material, Margaret repeated, but her voice had lost its certainty. When the pressure mounts, she'll crumble. Mark my words. The first crisis, the first real challenge, and she'll fall apart. Like she did during the cyber attack? Richard asked mildly. When she stayed at the office for 72 hours straight, coordinating response teams. I believe she cried then too from exhaustion, after we'd saved our clients' data. Or during the pandemic? Patricia added, when she personally called every single employee to check on them. Set up emergency funds for struggling families? Yes, she cried on those calls, while ensuring no one lost their job. That's not leadership, David finished. It's the very definition of leadership. Caring enough to cry, then working through the tears to find solutions. You're all making a mistake, Margaret said desperately. I've guided Diana for years. I know what she's capable of. And what she's not. She needs more seasoning, more toughening up. Under my continued mentorship. Your mentorship? Richard stood slowly. Tell me, Margaret, what exactly have you taught Diana? Everything. How to present to the board, how to manage up, how to. How to hide her humanity, Patricia suggested. How to be less caring, less innovative, less successful. I made her what she is. No, Richard said firmly. She succeeded despite you, not because of you. We've watched you take credit for her ideas for years. Watched you dismiss her concerns as emotional while profiting from her insights. Watched you try to mold her into a lesser version of yourself. How dare you? How dare you, David countered. Come into this room and try to sabotage the best candidate we've had in decades because she dares to feel things. The board will regret this, Margaret threatened. When she fails, she won't fail. Richard's voice was final. Because we voted yesterday. Diana's our new CEO. Unanimous decision. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat, could feel the tears. Yes, tears building behind my eyes. Yesterday, Margaret's voice was hollow. But this meeting was to inform you of the transition, Patricia said, and to discuss your early retirement package. My what? You're retiring early, Richard explained patiently. Effective immediately. We've prepared a generous package, contingent on your signing a non-disparagement agreement. You can't. We can. We did. David slid a folder across the table. Diana cried once, when she saved 500 jobs. You haven't cried once while destroying careers. We know which one we prefer. This is because I'm a strong woman. This is because you're a weak leader, Patricia corrected. Strength isn't the absence of emotion. It's the courage to feel deeply and act wisely. Diana has that. You don't. Her mentorship? Margaret sputtered. She needs my guidance. She no longer needs it, Richard said simply. If she ever did. I chose that moment to knock and enter. The board turned to me with varying expressions, surprise, approval, and in Margaret's case, shock morphing into rage. Diana, Richard smiled. Perfect timing. We were just discussing your promotion. Congratulations, I said quietly, looking directly at Margaret. On your retirement. I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision. You knew, she accused. You were listening. I arrived just now for our scheduled meeting. I lied smoothly. But I can come back if you need more time to process. No need, Richard stood. Margaret was just leaving. Security will help with her things. Margaret stood on shaking legs, her perfect composure finally cracked. You'll fail, she told me. The first real crisis, you'll cry and fall apart. Maybe, I agreed. But then I'll wipe my tears and fix the problem. That's what leaders do. I taught you everything. You taught me what not to be, I said gently. For that, I'm grateful. I learned that strength without empathy is just cruelty. That leadership without emotion is just management. That tears don't make you weak, they make you real. The board will regret this. The board, Patricia said firmly, is looking forward to a CEO who measures success in more than stock prices, who builds rather than breaks, who leads with head and heart. Margaret left without another word, her heels clicking a staccato defeat down the marble hallway. When the door closed, I finally let myself breathe. Thank you, all of you. Don't thank us, Richard said. Thank yourself for staying true to who you are despite years of being told to be less. I did cry, I admitted, during the Detroit plant meeting, the Richardson talks, last month's strategy session. We know, David smiled. We also know you saved 500 jobs, prevented a disastrous acquisition, and developed a strategy that will transform this company. Your tears didn't make you weak, Patricia added. They made you careful, thoughtful, human. That's exactly what we need. Margaret was right about one thing, I said. I am emotional. I do care too much. I will cry in meetings when people's lives are at stake. Good, Richard said simply. The day you stop caring is the day you stop leading. Now, shall we discuss your transition plan? As we settled into the real meeting, I thought about Margaret's mentorship. 7 years of being told to be less emotional, less caring, less myself. 7 years of being shaped into her image of success. But I'd learned something she never understood. The strongest leaders aren't those who never cry. They're those who cry for the right reasons, then do something about it. She was right. I wasn't executive material by her definition. I was something better. I was human material, leader material, the kind who'd rather shed tears than blood, who'd rather feel too much than nothing at all. And that was exactly what Hartwell Industries needed. The tears in my eyes as I accepted the CEO position weren't from sadness or weakness. They were from joy, determination, and the knowledge that 10,000 employees now had a leader who'd fight for them, even if it made her cry. especially if it made her cry. Because that's what real strength looked like. Caring enough to feel and brave enough to lead anyway. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.